So we've talked a lot about various ships from across science fiction, and today we're going to talk about one that I'm kind of surprised I haven't done a dedicated video on yet. Let's discuss the Nebulon-B escort frigate utilized by the Rebel Alliance. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So, the Nebulon-B has a very interesting history that some of you may be familiar with, but today I want to just kind of touch a little bit on how it's designed, the fascinating history of this ship, and the role it played within the Alliance Navy. So, like we handle all these ship videos, let's just jump right in with the numbers. The EF76 Nebulon-B escort frigate was designed by Kuat Drive Yards and is roughly 300 meters long, making it a fairly decent-sized light capital ship within the Star Wars universe. To push it through the cosmos, it has 7 Galaxy 15 ion engines and a Class 2 hyperdrive, making it a pretty fast vessel all around. As for armament, well, that varied quite a bit because the vessel was designed to be modular, but the Rebellion did have a sort of semi-standard layout for this, so I'll go over those numbers here. First off, there was 12 time and back X-17 turbo lasers serving as the ship's primary ship-to-ship batteries, 12 Phylon RH-8 laser cannons, which would have served primarily as point defense to screen against incoming fighters and engaging ships at closer range, 2 Phylon Q-7 tractor beams for capturing fleeing vessels, and many of them were fitted with a varying number of torpedo or missile launch systems of a wide variety of types. This whole thing would be crewed by in between 800 and 920 personnel, and could carry up to 700 passengers, including embarked rebel soldiers or rebel leaders, or whoever else may be on board. So now let's discuss the role this ship played within the Rebel Alliance, but before we talk about that, we have to first discuss the interesting story behind this ship, because they were not built for the Rebel Alliance, and they weren't civilian ships that were sort of retrofitted to serve as warships for the Alliance. They were actually built for the Imperial Navy, but didn't see much action within the Imperial Navy, with many of them ending up basically in layup pretty quickly after they were finished being constructed. And the Rebel Alliance swooped in on this pretty quickly and snatched up these vessels in various raids and managed to take a lot of them into their ranks, making them a core part of the Rebel fleet, having taken them in such large numbers. In fact, in most Rebel fleets, the Nebulon-Bs served as the largest ships in the fleet, often serving as flagships for Rebel strike fleets, which had previously been led by things like CR-90 corvettes, which are far smaller than the Nebulon-Bs. In the fleet, like their name suggests, they are escort frigates. They would have served an escort role, at least within the Imperial Navy, escorting larger vessels, but like I said, in the Rebel Alliance, their ships tend to be smaller and more geared towards hit-and-run attacks, so in most of these cases, these ships would serve as flagships, or support vessels in the case of larger fleets, like the fleet we see at Endor, which had a few Nebulon-Bs with them filling various roles, but none of which were command roles, because those roles went to the Mon Calamari cruisers. But there is one very notable role that these ships ended up filling in the Rebel Navy relatively frequently, and that was as medical ships. Now, there's a whole complex discussion about how the Rebel Alliance used their medical ships and whether or not it was technically a war crime. We see what appears to be them sending these medical vessels into combat at the Battle of Endor, but besides that point, this ship was very modular, so it was fairly easy to convert it to basically a giant spaceborne hospital for Rebel personnel who were injured in combat or who simply needed routine medical care. That meant that they often would serve as medical ships within Rebel fleets, especially Rebel fleets with other larger vessels which could take on the command role. That being said, like we see, especially early on in the days of the Rebel Alliance, these ships were filling more direct combat roles like command vessels, like we see during the Battle of Atollon, for example. The Nebulon-B itself would serve throughout the duration of the Rebel Alliance and into the days of the New Republic before eventually being retired after more modern replacements became available. Some of these replacements we do see in service of the Resistance during the Resistance First Order War, almost 30 years down the line. Just to get a little more in the weeds with its escort role, like I said, these ships are modular and can very easily be modified to fill different sort of specific roles within the fleet, so they would do things like screening against basically a variety of enemies. They could be outfitted with a large array of point defense lasers to screen against enemy starfighters. They could be fitted with a higher number of turbo lasers to be direct engagement vessels against light Imperial capital ships like Architon's-class light cruisers, which they were more or less an even match for in most combat engagements. They could be fitted as sensor ships and sent out on scouting missions to sort of scout ahead of a fleet, albeit that's a fairly big ship to use as a scout, but still, it's an option. We also know that there are docking ports on the bottom of the stock that connects the front of the vessel with the back of the vessel, allowing it to carry a small complement of starfighters, which could easily be deployed relatively quickly, as the pilot simply has to hop down a tube into their cockpit, seal the hatch, and they're ready to go. At the end of the day, the Nebulon-B is one of those vessels that really signifies the Rebel Alliance. When you think of the Rebel Navy, you're probably thinking of a handful of ships, and one of them would be a Nebulon-B class frigate. But another one of those ships would be the CR-90 Corvette, like the ship we see in A New Hope. If you'd like to learn more about the CR-90, its design, and some of its roles that it played in the various navies across the history of the Star Wars universe, I'll leave a link up here to a video I made a while back breaking down the lore behind the CR-90. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments what you think of the Nebulon-B. It's obviously a jack of all trades, but if you had a few in your fleet and were facing off against a force like the Galactic Empire, how would you outfit these Nebulon-Bs and what would you use them for? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars or anywhere else in science fiction, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon to get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.